Having made a video talking about heavyweights a while back, I and many others have made it emphatically clear that the archetype as a whole has and will always face an uphill battle when it comes to competitive viability in Smash. Given that winning or losing comes down to a ring out instead of classic survival where everyone has a health bar, the inherent properties and attributes of the class make it virtually impossible for them to see widespread success without compromising on balance integrity, but that doesn't mean they can't make an attempt. Prior to Kazuya, Bowser has been regarded as the most competitively viable traditional heavyweight in the game, enough to garner more than commendable results even at super major events. And though the bulk of his popularity is concentrated into mid-level play and not so much top level, there's enough empirical data to support the claim that Bowser can go toe-to-toe with the best of the best. In fact, this past year we've had impressive showings of the character across the world, with Leon making consistent appearances in top 32 if not top 16 at majors in the West, while Hiro has made a name for himself as a veritable threat over in the East, reaching top 8 at super majors like Kagaribi and Maisuma. Interestingly, unlike the other heavyweights whose reputations have been in constant decline, Bowser's has only gotten better, bringing me to this video. For today we'll be discussing why everyone plays Bowser. Another iconic member of the Smash Bros roster, despite not being part of the original cast of 64, Bowser had a rough start. Back in Melee, he was far and away the lowest ranked fighter in the entire game by a wide margin due to all of his positive traits being cancelled out, and then some by his overwhelming negative traits. Things didn't get that much better for him in Brawl, where even though he received a good number of buffs across versions, they barely had any noticeable improvement to his standing in the tier list at the end of it all. It wasn't until Smash 4 when he started to finally gain momentum in his favor. He received an almost complete rework in terms of model and animations to align him with the modern day depiction of him, a change with very positive consequences. By this point, the developers made a more concerted and conscientious effort to allow heavyweights more concessions to offset their severe limitations, and Bowser was among the greatest beneficiaries of his kind. Furthermore, Smash 4 would be the first installment to have version updates, which came in great handy for the Koopa King as he only became better throughout the years. Finalized at rank 24 out of 54, a significant improvement from Brawl and the first time we've seen him in the top half of a tier list. Arriving at Ultimate, Bowser was buffed even more in terms of initial balance changes and through version updates, which would have elevated him much higher in the rankings, but at present, he's in rank 50 out of 82. That being said, it has less to do with him and more to do with circumstances, which I'll get into later. Now, first thing I want to go over regarding Bowser is what exactly happened that made him, and by extension most other heavyweights, a lot stronger with every game. As I mentioned earlier, the developers saw fit to give them many ways to make up for their universal weaknesses while conceding the number of weaknesses they should have at the same time, as it became clear a good half or more of them were unjustifiably gratuitous. In the case of Bowser, he used to have some of the worst physics in the entire game, if not the worst. You guys remember his old dash animation where it looked like he was shredding the ground? Compare that to now where he has subjectively fantastic mobility. Ground speed wise, he can keep up with a lot of fast characters and even outrun the likes of Inkling and Pichu. Not too bad for a Hulk and Vulcan like him. On top of that, he has actual air speed and is a fast faller, though the former is hindered by his poor air acceleration. Nevertheless, Bowser has no trouble maneuvering across the stage, especially in relation to before. Another universal buff given to heavyweights is more generous frame data, which, while still a far cry from your brawlers, allows them to at least compete in the mid-range department when paired with their fantastic area coverage. Even though I give the best overall frame data to Donkey Kong or Incineroar, Bowser's moveset has the best balance of speed, power, and range. All of his attacks, ground and air, have enough effective range to contest even sword fighters, with far more strength to boot and comparably decent frame data too. For example, neutral, forward, back, and up air average out in the high single digits. Not bad at all for how strong they are. Another thing that really helped him out was the frame 3 jump squat given to every fighter sans Kazuya, greatly improving his ground to air game, which used to be one of his weakest points. And he has some of the most dangerous rising aerials in the game too, as forward air can easily overpower anyone else's fair in neutral while getting smacked right in the face by a back air ends your soul at ungodly percents. With how aerial focused Ultimate is, Bowser can at the very least competently contest his opponent from ground to air, taking into account how he only needs to win 3 or so neutral interactions before you're going to kill percent, as opposed to you having to win 4 or 5 times that number. That being said, heavyweights are still vulnerable to getting out frame dated and then smothered by anyone who can spam attacks on them. Fortunately for Bowser, his defensive game in neutral extends beyond his durability. Out of shield options in this game are more critical than ever thanks to the universal landing lag reduction on aerials. And if I had to make a top 5 best out of shield options in the game, Bowser's Whirling Fortress would easily take a top 3 spot. At a frame 6 startup, it hits both in front and behind him while being a multi-hitter, meaning it can also beat out spot dodges. Additionally, Bowser can move a fair distance left or right, which also lets him punish attacks that are spaced well or chase opponents who roll away. Alternatively, if they manage to shield your uppie, you can drift away from your opponent to get away from their out of shield options too. If that wasn't enough, this attack does hella damage, easily well over 15, launches opponents vertically to send them into disadvantage, and then starts to kill them at about 150 or higher. So while recovery wise it's not the best, on the ground it's with all certainty one of the most dangerous out of shield options in the game. More importantly, the presence of Whirling Fortress gives Bowser a veritable get-off-me tool. Generally, heavyweights excel in mid-range combat since their frame data isn't good enough for close quarters combat and they obviously can't deal with projectiles all too well. Their great area coverage and effective range though, albeit not disjointed, gives them the ability to wall out fighters with more stubby hitboxes. So if hypothetically Mario were to approach Bowser, he can outspace him. Although this usually ends in a trade, but as a super heavy, trades are always worth it since again, you only have to land half a dozen hits whereas they have to land 2 dozen or more. So by having a fast get-off-me tool, especially in the form of an out-of-shield option, it lets you reset the neutral game, thus giving you more chances to win those neutral interactions. Bowser's pretty good at shrugging off pressure in neutral, but he's even better at the inverse. Another universal buff they gave to heavyweights was an extensive grab game. You guys might remember the notorious skill throw combos that Bowser and DK pulled off in Smash 4. They're not as impressive now, but that doesn't mean you can just hold shield willy-nilly. Even though Spears may have slightly faster frame data such as DK or Instant, Bowser's attacks deal a lot more damage, making them way more threatening on shield. 3 good hits can shatter anyone's shield easily. At the same time, his innate brute force makes a lot of opponents' shield out of fear of getting killed at 60, I don't blame them. But that adds another layer of pressure for him courtesy of Flying Slam, a frame 6 command grab that deals upwards of 20% and starts closing out stocks at around 120 or earlier if there are platforms, not to mention the Bowser side you can pull off every so often. This attack was giga buffed during the transition to Ultimate. Back in Smash 4, it used to have a startup of frame 8 on the ground and 17 in the air, now it's frame 6 for both. He can use this on the ground and in the air. For example, most people have a habit of shielding when standing on a platform above their opponent in anticipation for an up tilt, up air, or up smash. Bowser can mix this up by doing a rising side B on them. The examples I mentioned earlier coalesce into the main reason why Bowser is the most competitively viable heavyweight: pressure. Among all heavies, that includes even Kazuya in my opinion, Bowser's pressure may very well be the highest out of all of them. I'm not saying that Bowser is a higher tier than Kazuya, but his pressure might be better. In a manner of speaking, he's the best heavy at scaring his opponent because when fighting him, you're never truly safe. His fast mobility on the ground and above average air and fall speed let him get from one place to another faster than the majority of the cast. Mobility or lack thereof is one of the most exploitable factors in a character. DK is fast on the ground, but one of the easiest characters to juggle. DDD's mobility sucks across the board, so you can usually run circles around him and juggle him. Incineroar, fast faller but terrible ground and air speed. K-Roll, fast on the ground and fast falling speed but terrible air speed, so anyone with a superior air game can hover just outside of him. Even Kazuya suffers from this too. Unless you master crouch dashing, your physics are terrible in both fields. Bowser on the other hand can travel basically half a stage with a full hop. Obviously he can still get out-camped by Sonic or zoned out by Samus, but he doesn't struggle anywhere near as badly as other heavies, and once he gets in range, just by standing close to his opponent, he puts fear in them, which is the second aspect of his pressure game, options. Heavyweights have linear approach games that make it very easy for them to get punished, since it takes a while for them to get to you and their aerials are usually unsafe on shield. Bowser's aerials are unsafe, yes, but because of Flying Slam, you can't overly rely on shield. Jumping to contest him is also risky since if he throws out a forward or back air, even if it trades, you're gonna be thrown right off the screen. And while they're gimmicky and unreliable options, Bowser Bomb can insta-break shields and Fire Breath at close range is unpunishable since the flames eat through your shield and push you away. It's difficult to play defensively against Bowser because he kind of gaslights you into questioning how safe your defensive options really are. So to win versus him, you have to outmaneuver him, which is difficult to do given how few characters outrange and or outrun him, or you have to fight offense with equal offense, which is also difficult to do given how for every one attack he lands on you, you have to land 5 or 6 on him. He can make way more mistakes than you and still win. In fact, even though Bowser's disadvantage is among the worst in the game, he can still mess you up if you aren't perfect with your combos or conversions. For instance, if you try to catch his landing, you'll have to guess from one of 5 options, 3 of which can kill you if you guess wrong. Option 1, Bowser falls to the ground without doing anything. Option 2, Bowser fast fall air dodges to the ground. Option 3, Bowser does a landing aerial like neutral or fair. The former can transition into another aerial while the latter can strike below him. Option 4, Bowser bomb. If you shield or toss out a move to catch option 1, 2, or 3, you're Option 5, down air, a stall and fall that can brutally punish anyone who pulls the trigger on their up tilt or up air half a second too early. The threat of straight up dying if you guess wrong, even while Bowser's in disadvantage, is what makes him so difficult to deal with. In addition to that, even if you guess right, you still have to guess right 8 dozen more times, during which, if any of those guesses are wrong, you can die, bringing me to the second biggest reason why he's so popular. Bowser is forgiving. He can get away with a lot of failed 50-50s while his opponent cannot. Recalling the juggling scenario, even if you guess wrong, the worst that can happen is that you get thrown back in the air. Very few characters can immortalize him as hard as he can them. Steve, Kazuya, Wario, anyone who can mash on you or has a 0 to death combo. Everyone else, they have to beat you the old-fashioned way, but being the heaviest fighter in the game means you'll more likely than not survive up to 150% every time. With that in mind, Bowser can afford to be more reckless with his moves and YOLOs since he will live to try again. And with the kind of payoff your 50/50s have like a random forward smash, rising back air, or Bowser bomb, that's all it takes to win. In conjunction with this blade is his natural durability through Tough Guy, preventing him from staggering against any weak attacks like some multi-hits and damage-based heavy armor on his tilts and smash attacks. It's not super armor or intangibility like Little Mac and Kazuya so you can contest him, but to repeat myself for the umpteenth time, the fear factor. Bowser can throw out an F smash, and if his opponent throws out a move as well, if that move doesn't deal more than 10% damage, they're eating one of the strongest forward smashes in the game. You have to respect Bowser no matter what. The Smash Wiki's ending remarks illustrate Bowser's gameplay very nicely. He has among the most raw damage output, highest skill power, and best shield breaking capabilities of any character, while still retaining great range and movement speed, meaning once he gains the upper hand, it can be practically impossible to break his pressure if he continuously reacts properly. Couldn't agree more with the statement. When Bowser throws you into disadvantage, for some reason it feels way scarier than any other heavyweight, and the class is known for terrifying their opponents through their raw force. Now with all that said, this is why his presence begins to diminish considerably at top level, which is what initially had me guessing if I should make this a why no one or why everyone plays. On one hand, Bowser's extremely popular at low, mid, and part of high level, but top level you don't see much of him apart from Leon, Hiro, and Dark Thunder, but it's kinda similar to what I said in my why no one plays Falco video. At top level play, not only are players better at mitigating their disadvantage, but they're also less affected by the fear factor due to having a better understanding of threat bubbles, ranges, and don't fall victim to matchup checks as often. On top of that, they maximize the hell out of their advantage states. Against a mid-level player, the ratio of lost neutral interactions Bowser can afford compared to his opponent is about, I'd say, 5 or 6 to 1 arbitrarily speaking, but against a top level player that ratio falls to 3 to 1 or even lower. All the same, the fact that in spite of how proficient top players are at the game, Bowser can still get top 32, top 16, or even top 8 as Super Majors is a testament to the viability of the character. His strengths more than outweigh his weaknesses, hence why he's the most popular heavyweight in the game. Kazuya may have taken the crown as the best heavyweight, but he has the privilege of input attacks, auto turnaround, and all the other DLC stuff. So if you focus purely on traditional heavyweights, Bowser's overwhelming offensive pressure and ability to survive lots of punishment offer the best balance among the archetype. I feel like for every heavyweight, you can do everything right and still struggle because the character's flaws are too great to overcome, but I don't get that same feeling for Bowser. The current meta may be turning against him with the growing prevalence of Steve, Kazuya, Sonic, and Aegis, but he's been handling it quite well, and if they release a second official alt rank, I think he's gonna improve quite a bit in rankings. At the very least, he'll always be popular at mid and low high level. Anyways, that's gonna be it for today. Let me know your thoughts on Bowser in the comments down below if you agree or disagree with my points. As always though, if you enjoyed the video, it would be great if you left a like and subscribed. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter at Vars, join my Discord server, and check out my other Why Everyone Plays videos if you haven't yet. But till next time, thanks so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you again soon. Take care.